All right, let's jump right into this explainer. We're looking at a moment in history that literally redefined cultural ambition. FESTAC 77. Officially, it was the second World Black and African Festival of Arts and Culture, but honestly, it was envisioned as nothing short of a monumental Black World's Fair. Just picture this, a whole month-long celebration built entirely from the ground up just to showcase the sheer power, solidarity, and genius of the global Black community. It was this massive, audacious undertaking to completely reshape how the whole world viewed African heritage.
To really wrap our heads around the sheer magnitude of this event, we've got to look at the numbers. And this one is staggering. The Nigerian government poured an estimated 400 million petrodollars into funding this single month-long festival. To put that into today's money, you're looking at roughly $2 billion. I mean, that is a breathtaking amount of cash. And it tells us right off the bat, this wasn't just your run-of-the-mill arts festival. It was a massive, incredibly confident statement dropped right onto the global stage by a rapidly rising nation. And all that financial firepower? It brought together an absolutely incredible concentration of human talent. We're talking over 17,000 participants flying in from 56 different countries. To this day, FESTAC 77 holds the record as the largest Pan-African gathering in world history. Just imagine legendary musicians, artists, and intellectuals all congregating in one place. It was this monumental, highly coordinated effort to reverse 500 years of cultural subjugation, basically reclaiming the narrative and putting the African continent and its entire global diaspora onto one unified, brilliant stage.
So, how did we actually arrive at 1977? Well, tracing its roots, the original vision was actually born years earlier, springing from the 1966 Dakar Festival in Senegal. At that very first event, Nigeria was invited to host the sequel in 1970. But, as history often goes, things got complicated. Navigating through the devastating Nigerian Civil War from 67 to 70 meant the festival had to be put on ice. And even after the war, further government changes in 1975 caused even more delays. The world really had to wait. But finally, against all the odds, FESTAC 77 threw open its doors in Lagos.
What's super fascinating is the ideological friction buzzing behind the scenes leading up to all this. There was this huge, really complex debate over how global Blackness should actually be defined. On one hand, you had Senegalese President Leopold Senghor's philosophy of negritude, which leaned heavily on a shared phenotype and, initially at least, sought to exclude the Arab-Berber cultures of North Africa. But on the flip side, you had Nigeria championing a much broader geographical and political Pan-Africanism. They argued for expansive borders, pulling in North Africa and the entire global diaspora, regardless of political ideology. Ultimately, Nigeria stood firm, making sure that a wider, way more inclusive definition won out.
Zooming in on the heart of the festival, you have to look at its defining visual emblem, the striking 16th century Benin ivory mask of Queen Mother Idia. But what makes this so poignant is the backstory. The original artifact was actually looted by British soldiers from the Benin Royal Palace during a raid way back in 1897. When the British Museum flat out refused to return the original for the festival, Nigeria didn't back down. Instead, they commissioned a brilliant replica carved by the artist Erhabor Emokpai. It became this incredibly powerful, defiant symbol of reclaimed heritage.
And to house all this reclaimed pride, they went ahead and built an architectural crown jewel specifically for the occasion. The magnificent National Theatre in Lagos. If you take a close look at its unique circular design, it was actually intentionally modeled to look like a military hat. It literally stands as a physical manifestation of Nigeria's ambition at the time. It was this massive, ultra-modern hub just radiating out from the center of Lagos to the rest of the world.
Stepping inside, you can see how that grand vision translated into reality, because this wasn't just a pretty building. It was a state-of-the-art technological marvel designed to project Afro-modernity. We're talking a massive 5,000-seat main hall, complete with a rotating stage. But honestly, the wildest part for the 1970s, it had built-in earphones at every single seat providing simultaneous translation in 8 different languages, not to mention closed-circuit TVs lining the hallways. It was perfectly designed to let wildly diverse nations communicate and share ideas without missing a single beat.
But that brings up a massive logistical headache. Where on earth do you put 17,000 international participants? Well, Nigeria's dedication to infrastructure was so immense that they literally built a new town from scratch. They called it FESTAC Village. This was a sprawling housing estate laid out on a highly efficient modern city grid. Over 5,000 contemporary dwelling units, their own independent electrical generators, health centers, supermarkets, even dedicated police and fire stations. The whole shebang. built specifically to handle a massive influx of up to 45,000 global visitors.
Now just imagine the pure electric energy when all those people finally gathered. The sheer sensory overload of the opening ceremonies really set an unforgettable tone. Held at the National Stadium, you have this massive parade of contingents from 47 countries marching in front of 100,000 cheering fans. The whole stadium just exploded with life. You had performers towering on 14-foot stilts, traditional Nigerian dancers flawlessly balancing flaming urns on their heads, and then this incredible sweeping release of 1,000 pigeons into the sky to symbolize freedom and global unity.
And the crazy thing is, the festival wasn't just confined to Lagos, it swept across the entire nation. Just look at two of the breathtaking regional spectacles they put on. Up north in Kaduna, you had the galloping equestrian majesty of the Grand Durbar, featuring emirs riding with a massive entourage of cavalry, camels, and musicians blaring traditional horns. Meanwhile, down on the coastal south, the Lagos Lagoon hosted the regatta. Picture ancient, waterborne war canoes painted in fierce, vibrant colors, packed with masqueraders. It was the perfect showcase of the stunning diversity within Nigeria's own borders.
Of course, making spectacles like that happen across such vast distances required logistics on a mind-boggling scale. To pull it off, the government went out and bought an astonishing 2,094 luxury and mid-size buses. And they didn't stop there. They actually commandeered the national airline and the entire train system. All of this was coordinated purely to transport hundreds of thousands of spectators back and forth, from the coastal south all the way up to the northern savannas.
So you might be wondering, how does a developing nation pull off an unprecedented logistical miracle of that size? Well, it was entirely fueled by Nigeria's booming 1970s oil economy. This petrodollar engine, backed by some very favorable global trade terms at the time, practically overnight transformed the nation into an economic powerhouse capable of bankrolling such a huge dream. The festival itself was a direct, vibrant flex of this newfound economic muscle. Today, decades after the dust has settled, we have to impartially weigh its really complex legacy. Because depending on who you ask, you get two very different perspectives. On one hand, it was a priceless triumph of cultural diplomacy. It forged unprecedented African unity, put a massive global spotlight on Black artists, and sparked a cultural renaissance that is still felt today. But on the flip side, critics view it as a massive economic burden. They see it as a prodigal disbursement of oil wealth that ultimately left behind physical structures like the National Theater and FESTAC Village, which tragically fell into disrepair because the funding to maintain them just dried up.
Which brings us to a rather profound final thought about the true value of cultural mega events. When the music finally stops, the massive crowds pack up and go home, and those grand buildings inevitably start to age, you have to ask, is the eternal power of forging a unified global identity worth the eventual decay of the physical monuments built to celebrate it? Does the unified spirit left in its wake make the whole endeavor worthwhile? It is a fascinating question to ponder. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer diving into FESTAC 77. Hopefully it sparked your curiosity to dig in and learn even more.